A man is trapped under the floor of an exploding spaceship. His radio's dead. He can't call for help, but through a gap in the wreckage, he can see someone. Someone floating in the fire, holding a shield in place so the rest of the crew can escape. Someone who could save him. Someone who's choosing not to. The man is an astronaut, an Air Force colonel, a patriot who believed in his country and believed in Superman. And in the last seconds of his life, with flames eating through the hole, he locks eyes with the most powerful being on Earth. And he thinks two things. You're Superman. And you're not going to save me. Then the ship explodes. That scene comes from Hitman issue number 34, published by DC Comics in February 1999. It was written by Garth Ennis, with art by John McCrea. The issue is called Of Thee I Sing, and it's without exaggeration one of the greatest single-issue Superman stories ever put to paper. But here's the thing. This isn't a Superman comic. This is a comic about Tommy Monaghan, a contract killer who operates out of a bar in Gotham City called Noonan's. He shoots people for money. That's his job. And the entire issue is a late-night rooftop conversation between this hitman and the Man of Steel. If that sounds like it shouldn't work, you're right, it shouldn't. But Garth Ennis, a writer famous for despising superheroes, somehow wrote the most human Superman we've ever read about. And DC's barely acknowledged this issue's existence. Let me walk you through it. The issue opens on Tommy Monaghan sitting alone on a Gotham City rooftop at night. He's smoking a cigarette, reading a newspaper, and looking out over the neighborhood called the Cauldron. This is where he grew up. This is his turf. Then Superman lands behind him. Not crashing through a wall, not arriving in a blaze of action. He just lands, quietly. And the first thing he does is apologize. He asks Tommy if this is his building, says he didn't mean to trespass. Superman? Apologizing to a stranger on a rooftop for taking up space? Tommy's stunned. He's a guy who kills people for a living, and suddenly the most famous person on the planet is standing next to him making small talk. He almost swears, then catches himself and apologizes for the language. Superman tells him there are no ladies or children present. He should express himself as he sees fit. This is the setup. Two men on a rooftop at night. One of them can fly. The other has a sniper rifle in his coat. And they're going to talk. But Superman's not here on business. He's not here to fight crime or save the world. Tommy asks if he's been off saving the world with Batman. Superman says no. Something went wrong tonight. Badly wrong. He came up here looking for peace of mind. And he didn't find it. Tommy the Hitman, the guy whose moral compass should be completely broken, does the most human thing possible. He says, "You want to talk about it?" Superman tells Tommy about the Yeager. It was a nuclear-powered space shuttle, NASA's first manned mission to Mars. The atomic engines were supposed to cut the journey time in half. But the moment they hit maximum acceleration, the engines overheated. The reactor core went critical. The ship started to come apart past the moon. Superman was on monitor duty at the Justice League Watchtower. He picked up the distress call. He flew out to save them. When he reached the Yeager, the crew had not deployed the lifeboat. They were not responding to signals. Superman had to break in through the dorsal airlock. Inside, he found the crew panicking. The commander, a man named Kennedy, had gone into the payload bay to reach the lander and had been caught in the radiation. The crew believed he was dead. Superman told them nobody was going to die. He would enter the payload bay himself, open the lander doors, and vent the radiation into space so the crew could board. The radiation couldn't hurt him. The lead shielding around the reactor felt like the heart of the sun against his skin, but he could take it. He held the shield in place while the crew scrambled to the lander. The metal behind him went white hot. The ship was shaking apart. He was seconds from getting out himself when something made him look. Commander Kennedy had not died. He was trapped in the subflooring with his radio down, hidden from view of the airlock. He'd watched Superman hold the shield. He'd watched the crew escape. He'd seen it all. And in the last moment before the ship exploded, Kennedy and Superman locked eyes. Kennedy's face was burned, bleeding, furious with terror. And Superman could read exactly what he was thinking. Those two sentences. "You're Superman, and you're not going to save me." Then the Yeager blew apart. This is where the story shifts, because Superman doesn't tell Tommy this story as a hero recounting a tough mission. He tells it as a confession. He tells it as a man who failed. Superman explains to Tommy what haunts him. It's not just that Kennedy died. He's lost people before. He learned to live with that long ago. What terrifies him is what Kennedy believed in the moment he died. Superman says he knows he can't save everyone, but he also knows what the idea of Superman means to people. He's the guy who comes from the sky and helps. If Superman's on the job, everything's going to be all right. Everyone believes that. It's the one truth people hold above all else. If Superman's there for me, I will be safe. But when the moment came for Colonel James M. Kennedy, commander of the Yeager, Superman let him down, and Kennedy died knowing it. Tommy pushes back. He asks Superman if he's really going to beat himself up chasing this ideal that he himself knows is impossible. This thing he can never live up to. And then Tommy says something that stops Superman cold. He looks at the most powerful being on Earth and says, "You're everything that is great about this country, and you don't even know it." Tommy doesn't stop there. He launches into a speech about America. He says this country could be the greatest place on Earth. People come here from everywhere, running from oppression and poverty, looking for a better life. But they hang on to all the things that got them into trouble in the first place. They keep fighting the same wars and hating the same people they did in the old world. But Superman, Tommy says, showed them how it's done. He's the classic immigrant. He came to this country from somewhere else and joined the melting pot. He left the old world behind. He's from Krypton, sure, but that's his past. Now he's an American, and he asks what he can do to help. Superman's never thought of it that way before. The Hitman from Gotham City just reframed Superman's entire identity in a way that 70 years of DC Comics never managed. Not as a god, not as an alien, but as an immigrant who chose to become American and asked how he could serve. The scene ends quietly. Superman thanks Tommy. He says he appreciates what Tommy said, truly. Tommy, embarrassed, asks for an autograph. He wants Superman to sign a Newstime magazine to all the boys at Noonan's. Superman smiles, signs it, and flies away. Tommy watches him go and says the one line, "What an unbelievably cool guy." And then Tommy goes back to work. He pulls out a sniper rifle, lines up a shot on a local gangster named Figs Kernahan, a man who runs protection rackets, deals drugs, and pays lawyers to stay out of prison. Tommy puts the crosshairs on Figs, says goodnight, and pulls the trigger. That's the issue. Superman pours his heart out to a contract killer. The killer gives Superman the most profound speech about his own identity that anyone's ever written, and then the killer immediately goes back and executes a man. No moral resolution, no judgment, just two people meeting in the dark, being honest with each other, and going back to who they are. Garth Ennis is a writer who built his career mocking superheroes. He thinks capes and tights are ridiculous. He wrote The Boys, a series entirely about how awful superheroes would be if they were real. But when he sat down to write one issue of a comic about a hitman, he accidentally wrote the most sincere, most human, and most emotionally devastating Superman story DC's ever published. DC's never really known what to do with it. The Hitman series went out of print for years. It's never been promoted alongside the essential Superman reading lists the way it should be. It lives in the margins, passed around by fans who stumble across it and can't believe what they found. And that's probably why DC has never known what to do with this issue. Because the best Superman story they ever published was written by a man who hates superheroes, drawn inside a book about a contract killer, and it says more about what Superman means than 70 years of official canon ever has.